The 9 villainous actors are exposed by Kevin Costner. Little does the public know that beyond the glamorous red carpets and award shows of Hollywood, there is a dark underbelly of personal animosity, poisonous characters, and career betrayals. Studio publicists put in long hours to portray an image of celebs getting along and respecting each other, but that's rarely the case in practice. Kevin Costner has shown more honesty than most actors while navigating the murky waters of Hollywood politics. Costner has been a respected actor for 4 decades, thanks to his reputation for professionalism, honesty, and an old-school approach to his craft. His films range from Yellowstone to The Untouchables. However, some of the most challenging people in the industry have clashed with Costner because of this same principled position. Famous people whose real selves are very different from their meticulously crafted public personas. Now we're going to take a look behind the scenes at 9 famous Hollywood people who crossed paths with Costner and made a bad impression on him. Not only are the tensions in these stories illuminating, but they also reveal something about the characters' personalities after the cameras stop filming. These interactions expose the shadowy side of an industry based on deceit, from dominating directors to deceitful co-stars and explosive people whose inner demons impacted everyone around them. If you want to know something surprising, the truth about these celebrities is worse than anything they've ever done on screen. They hid this Hollywood truth from you the whole time. No need to twist, though. It was a firm no. The answer was no, it wasn't a metaphor. No, that is, Shauna Young, the actress who played the role of the stalker. The battle between Kevin Costner and Sha Young, an actress, was one of the most peculiar and disturbing in Hollywood history. They got off to a good start in their careers together on the 1987 suspense film No Way Out. What transpired, however, is now widely considered to be among the most infamous instances of unprofessionalism in the history of Hollywood. Production insiders attest that Young's unpredictable antics heightened tensions and hampered filming. Despite his reputation for laser-like professionalism, Costner allegedly had trouble keeping sequences running smoothly due to Young's unpredictable behavior. The event genuinely became out of hand once filming concluded, though. Some have said that Young's actions toward Costner amounted to stalking, and that he developed an unhealthy fascination with her. According to some in the know, she would show up unannounced to parties where she knew Costner would be, trying to push him into conversations he had already expressed a preference for not having. Costner claimed that Young, in a worrisome escalation of her obsession, destroyed items belonging to her, and the issue progressed to property destruction. According to a producer who collaborated with both performers, Costner eventually declined to collaborate with her again. His exception to his usual tact when discussing co-stars, Young, was criticized in interviews for her lack of professionalism, which, coming from someone as level-headed as Costner, says a lot. Costner wasn't the only one with whom Young displayed her irrational conduct. She made headlines when she unexpectedly showed up unannounced at Tim Burton's office dressed as a homemade Catwoman costume, in an odd attempt to reclaim her position in Batman Returns after being rejected for the part. She became even more notoriously difficult and unpredictable after the stunt backfired horribly. Even if Young's conduct may have been influenced by her mental health issues, which is a matter that calls for understanding instead of ridicule, the effect on her co-workers was nonetheless tangible. A professional who values stability and professionalism in his working relationships sets boundaries, and Costner's decision to professionally distance himself from Young was not driven by personal vindictiveness. An intensely toxic work atmosphere in Hollywood may amplify pre-existing problems, leading to disastrous professional outcomes. The Costner-Young conflict is a sobering reminder of how fast simmering tensions can grow into something more serious. With his position as chief executive officer, he effectively serves as a head of state. His language skills include Russian. While I look out for Russia's interests, he has his own. 2 Oliver Stones, the filmmaker who warped history, were me. An examination of a watershed period in American history was what drew Kevin Costner to JFK, the film in which he stars. Actor James Costner gave the part of Jim Garrison the seriousness it merited because of his lifelong admiration for American history and its institutions. He was unprepared for the inevitable ideological divide that would arise between himself and Oliver Stone, the film's director, over the age-old dilemma of truth versus narrative. A member of the crew who was there during the confrontation between Costner and Stone on the set of JFK described it. The accusation against Stone included that he was controlling and rude on site in addition to distorting historical facts. Supposedly, Stone's carefree stance on conspiracy theories versus historical veracity unsettled Costner. Difficulty arose because of divergent perspectives on the subject. Famous for his controversial revisionist interpretations of past events, Stone examined the assassination of President Kennedy through the prism of complex conspiracy theories, occasionally manipulating facts to fit a more dramatic storyline. Costner, on the other hand, thought that it was important to honor historical accuracy even in a theatrical rendition. There was already a lot of tension on set due to Stone's authoritarian directing style. According to reports, Stone would allegedly brush off Costner's worries about factual accuracy by saying that artistic license should take priority over literal reality, demonstrating his notoriously aggressive and occasionally combative approach to filmmaking. Costner, who had made a name for himself via unflinching professionalism, saw in Stone's techniques all the things he disliked about some Hollywood filmmakers, their egos getting in the way of their responsibilities to the public and to history. An assistant on set recalls a day when tension was so high that it could be sliced with a knife. Costner would challenge the historical veracity of a scene, and Stone would essentially bulldoze him, perhaps in front of the whole crew. It went beyond merely divergent ideas. The crux of the matter was that they had an obligation to the audience to tell the truth. Both men kept up a professional public connection despite these tensions behind the scenes. They knew that their film tackled vital themes regardless of how they approached them. With 8 nominations for an Academy Award, including Best Director for Oliver Stone, JFK went on to become a commercial and critical success. One of the most intriguing philosophical disputes in Hollywood history is the one between the Costner Stones. This isn't an egotistical or immoral quarrel. Rather, it's a fundamental dispute regarding the duties of filmmakers when depicting historical events. It's a topic that keeps coming up in talks about historical film ethics and where to draw the line between being creative and being inaccurate. Icon Productions, since Mel Gibson owns the company, and Steve Makovit and Bruce Davey, since they were the initial admirers. When Friendship Drowns in Troubled Waters by Kevin Reynolds is the third. When once close friendships break down, it can lead to some of the most devastating feuds in Hollywood. As an example, the creative relationship between Kevin Costner and director Kevin Reynolds, who had previously produced successful films like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, collapsed catastrophically during the problematic production of Waterworld. What appeared to be a strong working relationship and friendship had developed between the two Kevins. Despite their differences, Reynolds directed Kevin Costner to financial success in 1991's Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Despite the odd argument, their creative chemistry appeared to be strong enough to endure. Waterworld, a post-apocalyptic epic that they undertook, changed all of that. It was notorious for being one of the most costly and difficult Hollywood productions of all time. Their friendship crumbled under the weight of the project's escalating budget, which went from $100 million to around $175 million, and the increasing number of production issues. An eyewitness to the decline described the two as having a huge falling out. They had a public, harsh, and professional poisonous feud, and Reynolds allegedly told Kevin, "Kevin should direct it, he's already directing the actor, the camera, and himself." This led to Reynolds leaving Waterworld mid-production. Conflict boiled down to a struggle for authority over creative output. As the production progressed, Costner, who had a substantial financial stake in it, as both an actor and a producer, became more involved in directing choices. Reynolds became more and more upset with what he saw as Costner's overreach, feeling undermined and sidelined in his position as director. The production hit a wall at 2/3 of the way through. Reynolds essentially quit the production after a particularly heated argument about a scene, since he did not return to the set. Costner, seemingly vindicated by Reynolds' parting remark about his domineering tendencies, took over directing duties to finish the film, which still had millions of dollars worth of filming to do. It was like seeing a marriage fall apart in real time, recalled a production executive. They had made something amazing together, but now the two of them couldn't even agree on anything. It became overwhelming due to ego, worry, and finances. Hollywood heavy hitters were compelled to take a stand as a result of their conflict. Neither man was prepared to collaborate with the other for decades after their once promising creative alliance produced a blockbuster a few years ago. Reynolds and Costner have spoken about each other with more measured tones in recent years, even though time has somewhat healed the wound. Their dramatic breakup serves as a warning that creative collaborations can fall apart at the cracks when individuals' tolerances are overwhelmed by the stress of a problematic production. You stand out. It was a pleasure to be here. It was incredibly kind of you. Thank you for visiting. We found it rather interesting. Exactly 4. The Goddess Madonna. The public shaming of the pop singer. Short yet memorable interactions can sometimes spark the most bitter Hollywood feuds, rather than years of working together. Kevin Costner and Madonna had one of the most surprising celebrity feuds of the 90s when their apparently harmless backstage conversation during her Truth or Dare tour turned out to be anything but. The event took place when Costner, who had recently achieved stardom thanks to Dances with Wolves, went backstage after Madonna's performance to offer his condolences. Costner told Madonna her show was tidy, probably meaning it as a modest but kind compliment. The following scene from Madonna's Truth or Dare documentary would go on to become a fan favorite. According to an entertainment writer who covered the incident, Madonna secretly made fun of Costner after he praised her performance on her Truth or Dare tour. She choked on camera and proclaimed, "Anyone who says my show is neat has to go." The scene aptly portrayed Madonna's defiant character, but it embarrassed Costner in front of the world. As soon as Costner exited the room, the camera caught Madonna's eye-rolling dismissal of his comment, turning her private moment of disdain into a public ridicule witnessed by millions. The incident was more than just a slight. It was a collision of principles for Costner, whose public character has always stressed simple honesty and traditional civility. Costner said, "I don't care much for her," in a subsequent interview with Barbara Walters, an unusually forthright comment regarding co-workers made by an actor who is normally reserved. This unusual display of displeasure showed how much Madonna's sarcasm had affected him. The incident served to emphasize the dissimilarity between the two viewpoints on celebrity. Madonna has built her career on defiantly rejecting traditional nicety and pushing provocative boundaries. In contrast, Costner embodied the stereotypically serious, honest, and sometimes stuffy Hollywood A-lister. Controversy ensued as a result of the collision of these divergent ideologies behind the scenes at Madison Square Garden. Because it was almost totally witnessed by the public, the Madonna-Costner conflict is all the more intriguing. This conflict was filmed and interviewed about, so viewers could see the incident that started it all and how it unfolded, unlike most Hollywood conflicts that are reported in rumors and behind the scenes. The incident is a striking illustration of how fast Hollywood's reputations can be tarnished in the blink of an eye, where even a short encounter may shape a relationship for years. This is a real incident. During the wedding on Staten Island, he presented Mooney with a belt at the conclusion of the championship season. Number 5. Duvall, Robert. Titans of acting clash. The possibility of conflict is ever present when two strong-willed individuals with decades of expertise and well-established methodologies collaborate on a project. Such was the situation in 2003's Open Range, a Western that Kevin Costner co-wrote and co-starred in with Robert Duvall. The project brought together two of Hollywood's most illustrious performers, but the working relationship between them turned out to be more difficult than predicted. Battle broke out on Open Range. A member of the production crew revealed that Duvall allegedly was dominating and refused to be built second. Both men maintained an air of professionalism while their alleged conflict was in the public eye. Supposedly, behind the scenes, Costner referred to Duvall as the most stubborn man I've ever directed. Differing perspectives on filmmaking were the root cause of the conflict. Costner anticipated some degree of contrast between his dual function as star and director, and he had a full vision for the project. Duvall, who had a distinguished career of his own and strong views on character development, was used to having a lot of say in his performances and was not one to blindly obey orders. An additional level of complexity was introduced by billing disputes. Actors of Duvall and Costner's caliber view their credits as more than just a series of numerical designations. They are important indicators of their professional status. The alleged opposition to second billing by Duvall demonstrated how even apparently insignificant administrative issues can escalate into enormous drama when two A-listers collaborate. Maintaining a professional demeanor throughout the conflict set the Costner-Duvall feud apart from other heated feuds in Hollywood. Despite their animosity behind the scenes, neither actor let it affect filming or become public knowledge during the marketing of the picture. According to a producer linked to the film, what was truly impressive was witnessing the outstanding performances given by these two men, despite their evident frustration with one another. They'd get into a heated argument over a scene, then take action, and become these amazingly complementary characters. It was an excellent demonstration of division of labor. Many critics praised the chemistry between Costner and Duvall in Open Range, which is paradoxical considering the alleged conflicts on site, and the film ultimately earned excellent reviews. As long as the actors are able to put their problems aside when the camera starts rolling, the film proves that professional conflicts don't have to ruin creative outcomes. An example of a more respectable rivalry in Hollywood is the one between Costner and Duvall. two highly regarded professionals who remain calm in the face of stark artistic disagreements. It's a good reminder that not every argument in Hollywood has to escalate into a tabloid-worthy squabble. In fact, sometimes the most intriguing conflicts are those that are managed with maturity and consideration for one another. I was in Eagle Rampant with 2-6, and I was in Canada with Catherine Cornell. The unpredictable legend, Marlon Brando. Some feuds in Hollywood began as a result of direct cooperation, while others sprang from careers that almost crossed but eventually didn't, sometimes on purpose. The few exchanges between Kevin Costner and Marlon Brando, for example, disclosed a lot about the actors' respective work styles and reputations in the business. They were both featured in the score, and there was a near miss with Brando playing Connery in The Untouchables. A casting director acquainted with the careers of both performers revealed that Brando was notoriously bigoted, harsh to directors, and manipulative. Rumor has it that Costner flat-out declined to collaborate with him, stating, "I just don't trust that energy." The story is slightly inaccurate. Brando, Robert De Niro, and Edward Norton were the featured performers. Although Costner was absent from the score, Brando was considered for the character that Sean Connery ultimately landed in The Untouchables, but the project never came to fruition. They were connected through other unrealized projects, though. As he grew older, Brando's fame grew for all the wrong reasons. Accounts from his co-workers in the film industry detail his increasingly irrational demands, hostile demeanor on set, and stubbornness in memorizing lines. Frank Oz had comparable problems scoring Apocalypse Now, when Francis Ford Coppola infamously clashed with Brando. Rumor has it that Brando refused to follow instruction and instead insisted on referring to Oz as Miss Piggy, alluding to Oz's previous work with the Muppets. Brando had a troubled career for reasons beyond his professional struggles. He also made unpleasant comments regarding other ethnic groups. There was a disturbing discrepancy between his activist reputation and his actual conduct. He publicly supported civil rights activities in the 1960s, but his private remarks frequently ran counter to this public position. Costner despised Brando because his reputation exemplified everything he despised in collaborators: a lack of preparation, professionalism, and direct communication in his acting technique. The remarked statement, "I just don't trust that energy," mirrored Costner's inclination for steady, drama-free set settings where the concentration could be maintained on the tasks at hand instead of handling challenging individuals. The decision to avoid collaborating speaks volumes about the role of reputations in Hollywood, even though we don't know what ideas could have arisen from a Costner-Brando cooperation. When people's actions disrupt or complicate teamwork, even the most gifted individuals risk being overlooked. Their lack of a romantic connection exemplifies the informal information network in Hollywood. Casting choices and creative relationships are shaped in ways that the public seldom sees, such as directors warning other directors or actors advising fellow performers about challenging colleagues. The most illuminating Hollywood tales often center on the doomed partnerships and the reasons why certain celebrities prefer to keep their distance from others. I suppose I can agree with Miss Turner on that point. 7 members of Whitney Houston's entourage shielding a celebrity from the prying eyes of her managers. Direct confrontations between actors are hardly the only kind of conflict in Hollywood. Conflicts between performers and their entourages, the managers, aides, and handlers who have power over access and information, tend to be some of the most crucial. These periphery disputes can affect projects and, in the end, people's lives, as Kevin Costner learned during his time working with Whitney Houston on The Bodyguard. According to a source close to the production, Costner had an altercation with Whitney's handlers during The Bodyguard because they were trying to hide her drug issues and restrict her rehearsal time. After openly stating that he had to preserve her legacy, Costner assumed control of the film's editing duties. He gave the impression that she was losing her work and her life to the people in her life. Studio executives were skeptical that an unproven actor could carry a big picture, but Costner was an ardent supporter of Houston's casting in The Bodyguard from the start. Because he was so invested in her success, he found it quite irritating when her entourage caused problems. Costner began to suspect that Houston was dealing with hidden troubles rather than the typical difficulties of a first-time actress, when practices were cut short or canceled multiple times, and she occasionally seemed unprepared or preoccupied. According to a crew member, Whitney's team constructed this protective bubble to ostensibly safeguard her from harm, but in reality, it served to conceal her worsening substance abuse problems. Costner could tell she was having trouble, but her people would step in and silence him if he tried to bring it up directly. Costner, who was also a producer on the picture, took the unprecedented step of becoming extremely active in the editing process as the tension mounted. not really an actor move. He wanted to shield the picture and Houston's reputation from the fallout of her growing instability by making sure her performance was portrayed in the best light. As news of Houston's drug addiction issues spread in the years after the film's debut and led to her untimely death in 2012, Costner's prior worries were tragically prescient. While focused mostly on Houston's exceptional talents, Costner offered a touching eulogy at her funeral that alluded to their shared tribulations throughout The Bodyguard. Costner refrained from undermining Whitney in any way. A journalist covering Houston's career in the entertainment industry said that he always considered her as a victim of a system that prioritized her commercial potential over her well-being. The enablers who continued to get funds despite her obvious misery were the source of his frustration. One of the most moving behind-the-scenes conflicts in Hollywood is the one involving Costner and Houston's crew. This wasn't just about some little disagreements over money or ideas. It was a fight for principle against a group that seemed to put profit before its clients' well-being. When Costner accepted this role, it was clear that his care for Houston went beyond their working relationship and into her future success as an artist and a person. It was a solid script, and the director was great, and the timing seemed right. Counting 8. Bruce Willis, the well-known action man. The origins of Hollywood feuds can range from casual friendships to more entrenched problems with professional standing and industry-wide norms of conduct. Bruce Willis and Kevin Costner have never worked together directly, but Costner allegedly formed strong judgments about the diehard actor due to Willis's legendary on-set behavior, which made him avoid any future collaborations. According to a source familiar with the careers of both actors, Willis was a well-known problem in Hollywood due to his inflated sense of self-importance, bullying behavior, and conflicts with notable figures such as Cy Shepard, Kevin Smith, and producers. Despite this, they never worked together. According to what Costner supposedly told a friend, there's no room for people who destroy sets just to prove a point. Willis's reputation for being difficult to work with developed over time based on several sources. The difficulties of working with Willis have been openly discussed by Kevin Smith, who directed him in Cop Out. Smith has described Willis as the unhappiest, most bitter, and meanest emo I've ever met at any job I've held, which is a harsh description. Sybil Shepherd, who co-starred with him on the popular series Moonlighting, has talked publicly about the strain their relationship had on filming the show. Prior to his aphasia diagnosis and acting retirement, Willis gained fame for his roles in multiple direct-to-video projects. These projects involved working very few hours for very high pay, and Willis would sometimes film an entire movie in one day without putting much effort or engagement. For Costner, whose method of filmmaking centers on teamwork, research, and reverence for the art form, the alleged antics of Willis exemplified all that he aspired to shun throughout his professional life and when working on set. Filmmaking, according to Costner's theory, should not be a platform for ego conflicts, but rather a constructive, collaborative process. The supposed remark about individuals who damage sets only to make a point illustrates this view. A director who has collaborated with Costner mentioned that he has consistently exhibited an air of classic professionalism. He takes his work seriously, handles his teammates with respect, and always arrives ready to go. The polar opposite of Costner's method is someone like Willis, who became famous for ruining sets whenever he was down in the dumps. It should be mentioned that in 2022, Willis's family announced his retirement from acting and his diagnosis with aphasia, a disorder that impacts cognitive ability and speech. His diagnosis has caused others to re-evaluate their accounts of his challenging behavior, with some suggesting that his disease may have manifested itself earlier than previously thought in his ego or temperament-related problems. Although they never faced off, the ways in which Costner and Willis handled their art and their on-set relationships show how the informal network in Hollywood works. Not only do stars consider the script's quality and commercial potential when choose who to work with, but they also consider compatibility and reputation, which can impact the production's ability to function smoothly or get bogged down in unnecessary strife. The guy can't get enough of me. Knowing this, you are an expert in the field. There are 9. Alec Baldwin, the man with the erratic personality. Instead of a direct fight between professionals, the last part of our investigation into Kevin Costner's troubles in Hollywood centers on a purported moral verdict. Costner's purported evaluation on the industry's readiness to ignore Alec Baldwin's history of erratic behavior. An entertainment journalist pointed out that Baldwin's violent outbursts span decades and include accusations of hurling phones, threatening photographers, and yelling at his daughter, among other things. Some guys just don't deserve the second chances they keep getting. Costner, who is highly pro-family and soft-spoken, supposedly said this in reference to Baldwin's troublesome history of public outbursts. During his custody fight with his ex-wife Kim Basinger in 2007, a notorious voicemail surfaced in which he berated his 11-year-old daughter as a disrespectful, ignorant pig. He allegedly swore homophobic insults at a paparazzi in 2013, one of many violent incidents involving him and photographers. He allegedly punched a man in 2018 following a parking space disagreement, leading to his detention. On the set of Rust in 2021, cinematographer Helena Hutchins was sadly killed by a gunshot. Baldwin was the unfortunate owner of the weapon. The incident has refocused attention on set safety and Baldwin's professional responsibilities, even though it seems to have been an unfortunate accident rather than an intentional act. Costner, on the other hand, has been very level-headed throughout his whole career. A striking contrast to the typical Hollywood star, he maintains an air of composure on set and prioritizes his family life when he's not in front of the camera. A producer who has collaborated with Costner described his demeanor as having an air of old-school elegance. He is not prone to tantrums. He is not demanding. People are not threatened by him. His actions seem to be guided by a fundamental regard for other people, and he fails to see why the market continues to recognize and reward those who consistently disregard these fundamental rules of conduct. The bigger issue of responsibility in Hollywood is mirrored in the purported remark regarding second chances. When someone has a pattern of dangerous or erratic behavior, how many opportunities should they be given? Limits should be imposed, according to Costner, particularly when the conduct in question has an impact on other people or indicates a basic lack of self-control. Less about personal hostility and more about divergent ideas of professional conduct is what makes the Costner-Baldwin dynamic noteworthy. Reportedly, Costner criticized the industry structure for what appears to be the normalization and facilitation of volatile conduct by performers as long as they are commercially viable, rather than a personal grudge with Baldwin. So, the last item on our list goes beyond personal grudges to tackle bigger issues regarding Hollywood norms of conduct and the industry's reaction to transgressions. According to the allegation, Costner argued for more individual responsibility, an attitude that is consistent with the honest professionalism he has shown in his work. Kevin Costner and the intricate network of ties that characterize Hollywood's backstage are both illuminated by these 9 stories. Disagreements amongst Costner stand out because they are principled, rather than being small-minded disputes over money or benefits. Rather, they are about issues of professionalism, honesty, creative control, and proper conduct. In a business where compromise is common, these testimonies paint a picture of Costner as someone who has strong limits and principles, showing concern about patterns of erratic conduct, standing firm against Sean Young's unethical behavior, sheltering Whitney Houston from her enabling entourage, and criticizing Oliver Stone's historical liberties are all examples of this. Honesty has always been more important to Costner than speed. His attitude hasn't always been well received by colleagues who are used to having their way. Actors like Duvall resented his all-encompassing vision for projects, while directors like Reynolds considered his input controlling. His unflinching Midwestern honesty was criticized by Madonna, and Brando embodied all that Costner despised in associates, his unpredictable behavior. Even still, these disagreements contribute to the explanation of Costner's extraordinary longevity in a field notorious for squandering potential. Despite the notoriously harsh environment of Hollywood, he has managed to build a career spanning 4 decades by sticking to defined professional standards, avoiding toxic partnerships, and concentrating on the job itself rather than the drama. The bigger facts about the inner workings of Hollywood are also revealed by the feuds and disputes that we have examined. In ways that the general public seldom observes, careers are shaped by the informal information networks, power dynamics, and unwritten regulations of the sector. The formation or dissolution of creative partnerships is influenced by a number of factors, including the people involved, the reputations of those involved, and the ease with which word gets about. The pristine performances we witness on film are frequently the outcome of complex and occasionally controversial production settings, and these facts behind the scenes should serve as a reminder of that to viewers. The capacity of artists to put aside their differences and create something bigger than themselves is the key to cinema's enchantment, an obstacle that some people seem to have no trouble overcoming. Conflicts in Costner's Hollywood career show that he is not someone who enjoys getting into fights, but rather an actor and filmmaker who will stand up for what's right in order to safeguard his work, his colleagues, and his projects in a field where honesty and integrity aren't always appreciated. Please subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up if you thought these insights into the inner workings of Hollywood were interesting. We will be happy to provide you with more in-depth analyses of cinema history. Leave a comment telling us which of these feuds caught you off guard and which Hollywood couples you would want to see us cover in future videos. Join us as we delve into the world of Hollywood, where our favorite performers' real lives are frequently more nuanced and illuminating than the roles they play.